Shelly Waite was a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. Born in Phoenix, Arizona, in 1967, Shelly grew up in a close-knit family that valued love, education, and community. She attended Maryvale High School, where she shone as a dedicated student and a gifted performer. Her involvement in choir and dance was more than extracurricular. It was a form of expression, a window into her joyful spirit. Shelly was described by teachers as a natural leader, often helping classmates with homework and organizing school events. Her dreams were typical yet profound. She wanted to attend college, perhaps become a teacher, or work in the arts. On the evening of the 16th of January, 1986, Shelly was at home alone. She had plans to meet friends the following day but was last seen alive by a neighbor in the early evening. When Shelly failed to show up for an appointment the next morning, concern grew. Her family contacted the police. Upon arrival, officers found Shelly's body inside her home. The scene was heartbreaking, her life violently taken, yet there were no signs of forced entry. This suggested she might have opened the door willingly, perhaps trusting the person who entered. Personal belongings were missing, including a distinctive necklace she always wore and a firearm she kept for protection. Investigators initially theorized robbery gone wrong but suspected the true motive was more complicated. The Phoenix Police Department assigned Detective James Hendricks to the case. At the time, forensic science was limited. DNA evidence was not yet mainstream, and investigators relied on eyewitness accounts, fingerprints, and physical evidence. Detectives interviewed neighbors, friends, and acquaintances. Several persons of interest emerged, including a man who had reportedly been seen near Shelly's home days before the murder, but none could be linked conclusively. Detective Hendricks recalled in a 2017 interview, "We had the means we had. We followed every lead, checked every tip, but sometimes the pieces don't come together as we hope." Shelly's case was one of those heartbreaking mysteries. Despite extensive canvassing and questioning, no arrests were made. The case files slowly grew cold, marked by frustration and unanswered questions. For 30 years, the case remained unsolved. Shelly's family lived with the unbearable void left by her absence. Her mother, Linda Waite, became a quiet advocate for cold case victims, attending community meetings and urging police to keep her daughter's case open. In 2010, the Phoenix Police Department formed a dedicated cold case homicide unit, recognizing the potential of new forensic methods to revive stalled investigations. In 2016, Detective Dominic Rostenberg joined the cold case unit and took on Shelly's file. Advances in forensic science, especially the rise of DNA analysis, opened new doors. The unit painstakingly reviewed all physical evidence from the original investigation. A key breakthrough came when they found an evidence box containing a cigarette butt and a small fabric fragment recovered near Shelly's home in 1986, but never tested with DNA. Using modern techniques, forensic scientists extracted a DNA profile from the samples. This profile was entered into the Federal Bureau of Investigation's combined DNA index system to compare with profiles of known offenders. In early 2025, the DNA matched Alfred Earl Green, a convicted murderer already serving a life sentence in Arizona. Police moved swiftly, arresting Green on the 20th of February, 2025, charging him with first-degree murder in connection to Shelly Waite's death. Detective Rostenberg reflected on the arrest. "After all these years, we finally had a name and a face to the tragedy. This case was more than files and evidence. It was a young woman whose life was stolen. Bringing Alfred Green to justice is a victory for Shelly and her family." Linda Waite, Shelly's mother, shared her emotions in a statement. "For nearly 40 years we lived in limbo, not knowing who took our daughter, why, or if justice would ever come. This arrest doesn't erase our pain, but it helps heal the wound. We are grateful to the police and forensic experts who never gave up." Shelly's younger brother, Michael Waite, who was only 10 when Shelly died, added, "I was a child then, but I remember the silence and the sadness. Knowing the person responsible is finally in custody gives me hope that one day this family can find peace. The Shelly Waite case is a prime example of how forensic technology has transformed criminal justice. In 1986, DNA profiling was in its infancy and unavailable for routine investigations. The preservation of physical evidence was critical. Without the cigarette butt and fabric fragment, this case might have remained unsolved. The cold case unit's persistence to revisit and retest evidence with modern techniques like short tandem repeat analysis and mitochondrial DNA testing was vital. DNA databases, such as Combined DNA Index System, now link thousands of profiles, helping identify repeat offenders and solve decades-old crimes. Chief Jerry Williams of the Phoenix Police Department emphasized, "Shelly's case reminds us that justice may be delayed, but should never be denied. Our cold case unit's work exemplifies our commitment to victims and families. We honor Shelly's memory and reaffirm our pledge to solve all cold cases." Community leaders held vigils to honor Shelly Waite's memory and raise awareness of unsolved homicides, hoping to encourage more families to seek justice and for communities to support victims. Alfred Earl Green awaits trial, where prosecutors will present the DNA evidence and historical context of the case. While the legal process unfolds, Shelly's family continues to advocate for victims' rights and forensic funding to prevent future cases from languishing.
Samantha Knight, originally named Samantha Therese O'Meara, graced the world with her presence on March 25, 1977. Her early years were spent in the picturesque locale of Manly under the care of her parents, Tess Knight and Peter O'Meara, until their separation led her to reside with her mother in the charming suburb of Bronte. By 1986, their lives had transitioned to a modest block of flats on Imperial Avenue in Bondi. Tragically, on August 19, 1986, Samantha vanished without a trace. Despite a fervent search effort marked by the widespread distribution of her image throughout New South Wales, she was never located. The investigation into her disappearance eventually turned its focus to Guider, who had come under scrutiny from law enforcement due to mounting pressure from Denise Hoffman, co-author of Forever 9. Hoffman had collaborated with Guider on various Aboriginal sites in Sydney and became concerned after hearing from freelance journalist Dee Michelle about Guider's peculiar and obsessive remarks regarding Knight. Although Michelle hesitated to approach the authorities out of loyalty to a friend, Hoffman resolved to take action and conveyed her suspicions to a detective at the Castle Hill police station. When questioned, Guider initially claimed to have only encountered Knight a few times. However, it was later revealed that he had assaulted her and two other young girls at a residence on Raglan Street in Manly between 1984 and 1985. Following an extensive investigation, Guider was charged with Knight's murder on February 22, 2001. On June 7, 2001, he entered a guilty plea for manslaughter, asserting that he had inadvertently administered a lethal overdose after drugging her, fearing she would recognize him upon regaining consciousness. On August 28, 2002, Michael Guider received a sentence of 17 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 12 years for the crime of manslaughter, to be served consecutively with his sentence for child sex offenses. The remains of Knight have never been located. Guider exhibited no signs of remorse and claimed to have no recollection of what he did with her body. Over the years, Guider's accounts regarding Knight have been inconsistent. Initially, he professed complete amnesia concerning her whereabouts. Subsequently, he asserted that he had interred her in Cooper Park, situated in the Bellevue Hill suburb of Sydney, only to later claim he had exhumed her and disposed of her remains in a skip at the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron, where he was employed as a gardener at the time. In March 2003, he informed the authorities that he had buried Knight within the grounds of the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. A search conducted on May 15th yielded no results, despite a police sniffer dog indicating a positive reaction to the soil from the area. The dog's handler expressed surprise at the lack of findings, stating that the dog's response was as definitive as possible, leading him to believe a body had indeed been present. Authorities were inclined to believe Geider's latest claims, speculating that Knight's remains might have been inadvertently disturbed during the construction of a car park approximately 18 months after her burial, or that Geider himself may have relocated them upon learning of the impending excavation. Michael Geider was born in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and relocated to Sydney with his mother in 1952. His mother endured a tumultuous relationship with an alcoholic army cook, and in 1953, Geider welcomed a younger brother, Tim. Due to their mother's instability, the two boys spent time at Melrose Boys' Home. Geider later disclosed to prison psychologists that he had suffered sexual abuse at the hands of his mother and subsequently at the boys' home. In the 1970s, Geider faced charges for various offenses, including setting fire to a shop owned by a woman with whom he had been involved. Geider, once a dedicated gardener at the esteemed Royal North Shore Hospital, cultivated a profound appreciation for Aboriginal culture and the historical sites of Sydney over the years. His passion led him to gain recognition as an amateur authority on the subject, with his insights featured in at least one published work. However, his life took a dark turn in December 1995 when he was apprehended for inappropriately touching two young girls, aged 7. The incident came to light when one of the girls confided in her mother, prompting her to alert the authorities. In 1996, Geider faced the consequences of his actions, receiving a 16-year prison sentence with a non-parole period of 10 years for a total of 60 charges involving 11 children. His predatory behavior typically involved babysitting the children of acquaintances and administering the sedative temazepam to incapacitate them before engaging in acts of molestation and photography while they slept. In 1999, he was sentenced to an additional 6 years and 6 months for further offenses against 2 other children, with the judge mandating that part of this sentence be served consecutively. Geider was placed under stringent protective measures in Goulburn prison, yet he endured brutal assaults on 2 separate occasions, resulting in severe injuries, including fractures and lacerations. After accounting for time served before sentencing, he became eligible for parole in June 2014. However, his application was denied, extending his incarceration by approximately 5 years. Although he was again eligible for parole in June 2014, the State Parole Authority rejected his request, citing the necessity for comprehensive post-release plans. A subsequent review in April 2017 also resulted in denial, with another review scheduled for April 2018. By February 2019, reports indicated that Geider was legally due for release in June 2019, yet the Attorney General of New South Wales was actively seeking to prevent his release. The government sought an additional year of incarceration for Geider, a request that stirred significant public interest. Tess Knight, the mother of Knight, expressed her desire for Geider to remain imprisoned indefinitely, labeling him one of the most perilous offenders in New South Wales. On May 27, 2019, the government petitioned the Supreme Court of New South Wales for Geider's continued imprisonment, coupled with a 5-year extended supervision order. The court was set to deliberate on whether to impose an interim detention or supervision order until a conclusive hearing anticipated in August. Geider's attorney contended that his client had demonstrated exemplary behavior as a prisoner, having been granted 20-day leaves under the watchful eye of a chaplain. He further asserted that, upon release, Geider would reside in a halfway house adjacent to Long Bay Prison, adhering to 56 conditions that would surpass the strictness of standard parole. On June 4th, the Supreme Court enacted an interim detention order, prolonging Geider's imprisonment for an additional 28 days, during which he would undergo evaluations by both a psychiatrist and a psychologist. By August 20th, Justice Richard Button announced that a decision regarding Guider's continued incarceration would be made by September 5th. Attorney General Mark Speakman aimed to extend Guider's imprisonment for another year, followed by 5 years of supervision post-release. Guider's counsel reiterated that, if released, his client would comply with the stringent conditions of the halfway house near Long Bay Prison. The court acknowledged that Guider had completed 55 therapeutic maintenance programs during his time in custody. On September 3rd, the judge ruled in favor of Guider's release, albeit under a multitude of restrictions. The Attorney General sought guidance on the feasibility of prolonging Guider's detention, yet he was ultimately released on September 5th, subject to a 5-year supervision order, a decision that garnered extensive media attention. Before his release, he was equipped with a Booty Insight smart tag. Upon his release, Guider was found to be suffering from a significant tumor in his groin. He had opted against treatment while incarcerated, harboring a deep mistrust of the prison's medical personnel. It was anticipated that the tumor would be evaluated following his release. Additionally, he was managing a heart condition with medication. During his time in prison, he had chosen not to take medication aimed at diminishing his sexual urges, fearing it would adversely affect his heart treatment. After his release, he spent a period in a halfway house near Long Bay before being relocated to a confidential site. Guider passed away at the Prince of Wales Hospital in Randwick on September 7, 2024, leaving behind the secret of Samantha Knight's burial site undisclosed.
In 1997, a small tragedy unfolded in the province of Shandong, China. Guo Gangtang's 2-year-old son, Guo Xinzhen, was snatched by human traffickers right outside their home. This was the beginning of a cold case that would remain unresolved for nearly a quarter of a century, a haunting mystery that would shape the life of one man determined to find his child no matter the cost. From the moment his son disappeared, Guo Gangtang embarked on an extraordinary mission. Mounted on a motorbike, he traveled more than 500,000 kilometers, the equivalent of circling the Earth over 12 times, chasing every tip-off and lead he could find. His search took him to over 20 provinces across China. Along the way, Guo endured countless hardships. He broke bones in traffic accidents, faced highway robbers, and damaged at least 10 motorbikes that carried the banners emblazoned with his son's picture. Despite these dangers, Guo pushed on. He poured his life savings into the search, often sleeping under bridges or begging for money when his funds ran dry. But beyond his physical journey, Guo became a beacon of hope for many. He rose as a prominent member of missing persons organizations in China, helping reunite at least 7 other parents with their abducted children. The kidnappers, a couple named Tong Luxia and Hu Fuji, had planned the abduction meticulously. The female suspect, Tong, spotted little Guo Xinzhen playing alone and seized the opportunity. She grabbed the child and hurried to the nearby bus station where her partner, Hu, awaited. The couple then took an intercity coach to Henan province, where they sold the child. Years later, justice was served. Hu Fuji was sentenced to life imprisonment with a 2-year reprieve, while Tong Luxia received a life sentence. Child abductions remain a grave issue in China, with an estimated 20,000 children abducted annually as of 2015. Many are sold domestically or overseas, leaving tens of thousands of unresolved cases and shattering countless families. The widespread problem even led to the creation of a dedicated category for child abduction on a police app, alongside major crimes like theft and murder. Distressingly, some kidnappings involved insiders, relatives, or neighbors who facilitated these crimes. In one particularly heartbreaking case, abducted children were forced to work in a brick factory in a neighboring province. The breakthrough in Guo's case came after 24 years, thanks in part to a massive DNA database initiative launched by China's Ministry of Public Security. Using DNA testing, police identified Guo Xinzhen still living in Shandong province. The reunion, held in Liaocheng, was a deeply emotional moment. Guo Gangtang and his wife embraced their son tightly, tears streaming down their faces. The mother, whose name was not publicly released, tearfully said, "My baby, you came back." Guo himself expressed a sense of relief and hope, saying, "Now that the child has been found, everything can only be happy from now on." The story of Guo Gangtang resonated widely and inspired the 2015 film Lost in Love, starring Hong Kong superstar Andy Lau. Lau, who had met Guo while preparing for the role, congratulated him personally, saying, "I would like to say to Brother Guo that I admire your persistence." Guo's journey is not just one of personal reunion, but a stark reminder of the social problem that has caused so much pain in China and beyond. The relentless efforts by police to use DNA to solve cold cases are yielding some success, but challenges remain. Many abducted children grow up unaware of their true origins, making voluntary DNA testing rare and recent abductions harder to track. Despite the grim reality of widespread child trafficking, Guo Gangtang's story stands out as both heartbreaking and heartwarming, a testament to the enduring power of a father's love and an inspiring beacon of hope for families still searching.